Today I wanted to talk about how I got pregnant on the first try, and different things that I did, short-term and long-term, that I think help. That's just what we're talking about today. First, I wanted to go over some books that really helped me. This one, first and foremost, I read this, I don't know, back in like 2016, 17 or so. It really just blew my mind. There's so much that we're not taught in regards to our own reproductive system as women. For men too, like, this information is definitely helpful for men to know as well. It's really just a shame that people have no idea how the whole process works, and that you can't just get pregnant 24/7, 365 days, you know, a year, that there's an ebb and flow to your cycle and when you can get pregnant. And I wish that more people knew this information, because I think we could prevent a lot of unplanned, unwanted pregnancies and all types of things if people just knew how to take responsibility for their reproductive health and their fertility. It's the aptly titled Taking Charge of Your Fertility. The book covers a wide range of female health, going from prepubescent to puberty to when you have your cycle to menopause and all of that. So it covers the whole gamut of female reproductive health. But really what it's trying to teach is a way for you to track, yes, your cycles, which I know a lot of people are doing these days with apps, but logging the day that you start and end your period can only tell you so much about your fertility, and it's not necessarily going to prevent a pregnancy. What will really prevent pregnancy is knowing how to track when you're ovulating, and if you're not trying to get pregnant, not having unprotected sex during the time that you're ovulating. It's as simple as that. With that comes another set of challenges, whereas people who have irregular periods or endometriosis or PCOS, who it's a lot harder for them to kind of see the forest through the trees and find a pattern in their cycle so that they can kind of time those things. But what I've learned is, even if you do have irregular periods, which my apps always tell me that I do, but they're not crazy irregular, so I don't know how accurate that is. But another factor in if you are trying to conceive is testing your LH. The book talks about all of those things. I really enjoy her writing style and her teaching style. I recommend this book to anyone, all women in your life. If you want to get them a great book that could potentially change their life for the better and change their health for the better, it would be this book. Unless they're already familiar with things like this. She teaches you how to chart your cycles, meaning on a graph, like on a chart, from cycle day 1, which is the first day of your period, to your ovulation day, which is somewhere in the middle of your menstrual cycle, to the end, which would be the start of your next period. As far as tracking fertility leading up to ovulation, you can take your basal body temperature upon first waking up in the morning, as long as you're waking up at the same time every day, you know, give or take around the same time, maybe like a margin of error of like 20-30 minutes. But if you've been doing it like I have, like it's just habit, you just pop the thermometer in your mouth as soon as your alarm goes off. Even if you are going to stay in bed a little later, you can just pop the thermometer in your mouth, record your temperature, put the thermometer away, and go back to sleep. You can track your basal body temperature, and then you can also use LH test strips. It works like a pregnancy test. You test your urine, which can also test for for LH, which is a hormone, the luteinizing hormone that triggers the release of your egg. Sometimes you just don't ovulate. Like sometimes maybe you're traveling or it's like a stressful time in your life. Your body may just skip ovulation. That's just what your body decided that it needed to do that cycle, and that's perfectly okay. And you would know that if you were tracking your temperatures. You see the rise in temperature, and also your LH test detects the luteinizing hormone. So Anyway, she gets way more into depth about the method. Hopefully I'm explaining it in a simple way. There are a couple of things that can clue you into when you're at your most fertile. Obviously, if you're tracking your period in an app and that's all you're doing is just tracking the first day and how many days and the last day of your period, that's really just going to tell you the length of your periods and if they're, you know, semi-regular or not. If you are using the period tracking apps to try as like a form of birth control, there's a couple of other factors that you need to take into consideration. The first one being still track your periods, it's still great. And the second would be to track your basal body temperature. What that is taking your temperature. It uses a different thermometer that I believe than taking your temperature for a fever, for example. So what you would do is every day before you get out of bed at the same time of the day, every day, you would pop a thermometer in your mouth, lay there very still. It takes maybe like 10-20 seconds for it to get a reading. Sometimes a bit longer. You just lay there until you get the reading, and whatever the temperature that comes up, you record it into an app, or if you're using paper charting, you record it onto your paper chart and you can go back to sleep or carry on about your day. What that does is when your body releases the hormone, when a hormone called LH, luteinizing hormone, what that hormone does is trigger the release of an egg from your follicle. That egg cannot be released unless the LH in your body rises high enough to a level that triggers its release. So what the body measuring your basal body temperature does is let you know if you are producing enough of that hormone so that it can trigger your egg to be released. You'll notice, like, I think it's like at least a 0.5 because the basal body temperature goes to 2 decimal points. So I think as long as there's a rise or a difference of at least like 0.05, then that could potentially be a confirmed detection of LH. I noticed that when I was waking up very, very early, my temperature was always like in the high 97 point blah blah blahs. But if I took my temperature, let's say I slept in, or I started waking up later for a portion of the year, then my temperatures would be a little bit higher just at rest in general. That's something to keep in mind. If you're waking up before like 4 or 5 a.m., then it might be a little bit harder to detect those LH surges, because I did notice in waking up between like 5 and 6, it was always lower than if I was waking up between like 7 and 8. For example, when I was trying to get pregnant, my temperature at rest, you know, my waking temperature would be like 97.30, 97.08, then it would jump to 97.41, and that's the day that I ovulated. So it's not like like a 0.06 jump. Before that I had like 97.25, so mine are always like in the 97s, and I would freak out about that because I would see other women who would be charting and they're trying to conceive and their temperatures would be in the 98s just at rest, even when they're not ovulating. So I was like, oh my god, is something wrong with me? Am I gonna have issues? But it worked out. Tracking your LH levels is also going to help you either conceive or not to conceive. So if you notice that you spiked if you have a regular period and you kind of ovulate maybe on between cycle day 14 and 17, then if you're not trying to have a baby, then you just would abstain or be very, very careful in using condoms or pull-out method or whatever to not get pregnant, depending on your situation in life. If you have a partner, a supportive partner or whatnot. If you don't, then just abstain those days. Like it's really that easy. And if you are trying to conceive, on top of taking your temperature in order to track your LH surges, you can take what's called ovulation test. It works really similarly to a pregnancy test. You pee in a cup or pee directly on the strip, and the strip measures your luteinizing hormones. It has a control line on the strip. If your line is lighter than the control line, then you're most likely in the clear, you haven't ovulated. And if you are closer in color to the control line, your body is starting to release it, but maybe the levels haven't reached the peak yet to trigger the release of the egg. You could still potentially get pregnant, depending on how long the sperm stays inside your body. But if your line is ever as dark as or darker than the control line, then you're probably ovulating like right then and right there. And if you already had sex like close to right before then if you're trying to get pregnant, yay. If you're not trying to get pregnant, you made a mistake. That's another fertility clue that you can use if, you know, trying to prevent or sustain a pregnancy. And then you can also monitor things like your cervical mucus throughout your entire cycle. So day 1 of your period to day 1 of your next period, your cervical mucus goes through different changes. Right after your period, it's usually, I think there's really, it's been so long since I had a period, so give me a minute to remember. I think after your period, there's really not a lot going on down there, and then it starts getting thicker or like whiter, like a thicker consistency and like whitish in color. And then close to ovulation, leading up to ovulation, it's gonna thin out and it's gonna be more clear versus white. And after you ovulate, once the egg has not been fertilized, then it goes back to nothing, and then your period starts. So yes, that book goes over all of those different things. Tracking your cycles can also tell you how long your, oh gosh, what is it called? Why can't I think of this? Okay, so your cycle is divided into two parts. The first half is the follicular phase, and after you ovulate starts your luteal phase. So by tracking your cycles, you can also get more information on your ability to sustain a fertilized egg, if that makes sense. If you are trying to get pregnant, like you're tracking your cycles and your luteal phase, so the phase after ovulation, is less than like 10 or 11 days, then maybe there's something going on inside your body that needs to be assessed or regulated so that you can get that to last at least, I think you want it to be at least like 10-11 days. I've had cycles where it's as short as 10 days, and then I've had cycles where it's like 16 days or so. So if it was shorter, that just means that once your egg is fertilized, your body may have some difficulty in providing an environment for the fertilized egg to flourish, if that makes sense. If all this information is new to you, I would say really get familiar with it. Read this book. I don't know if there's any companion books or similar books that are as in-depth as this one. If anybody has a recommendation, feel free to drop it in the comments. But I would say really take the time to spend time with yourself and use this, as a form of self-care. Even if you're not trying to get pregnant, or you're not in a relationship, or you're not trying to prevent pregnancies, just to know this information, I'm telling you, it's so empowering as a woman, and it just makes you, it literally, it's like, why are we not taught this information? Like it literally blows my mind that sex ed, in whenever you learned it, with junior high, elementary school, they teach none of this, or at least my school didn't. If yours did, you need to drop your school in the comments so that everyone can send their kids there. But yeah, it's really, really just impactful information that can have a huge effect on your life. I don't know personally anyone that's kind of going through an IVF journey or an IUI journey or anything like that. So I'm not sure if doctors working in that field try to recommend their patients to learn information like this before they start with all of the testing and different things that they do. So I think that if you are not at that step yet, before you think, oh, I'm a certain age, or oh, my mother had trouble conceiving, or my aunts, my grandma, you make sure that you're prepped with this information at least, so you can kind of learn your body for yourself, and maybe you'll be able to figure it out on your own before you have to go to those extreme measures. Just throwing that out there. So the other book that I want to talk about that really helped me was this one. So when we decided that we wanted to start trying soon, we also decided, well, wouldn't it be cool if we had a boy first and then we had a girl? We just want to. And I was just Googling things like old wives' tales and whatnot, like how to conceive a boy, how to conceive a girl, like out of different things. Like after like reading this book and feeling like it was kind of like a reproductive system hack, I was like, well, maybe there's another way. There's got to be some way to know if you can kind of sway for one gender or the other. So in my YouTubing and Googling, I kept seeing like in the comments like, oh, baby dust, baby dust, baby dust. I was like, what the heck is this? So I looked it up and it turns out it's a book. It's a very short book. You can get it on Amazon, I think for like less than $10. I could be wrong. But basically the author, Catherine Taylor, builds off of the shuttles method. His theory was that male sperm swims faster and dies quicker than female sperm, or sperm that carries, female chromosomes. So people were kind of going off of that. What this book found was that they don't swim at different speeds, but you can increase the chances of having a boy by having intercourse as close to ovulation as possible. And if you want to have a girl, you want to space it out a little bit farther away from ovulation, and I guess hope that the sperm lives long enough to reach the egg once the egg is released. And you only want to do it one time that cycle for a girl. For a boy, you want to do it at least twice, 1 or 2 days before ovulation and then on ovulation day as well. If you guys are trying for a boy, let's say you're gonna ovulate on cycle day 14, it says you basically want to abstain until you're ready to try really close to that small ovulation window, because it makes the sperm stronger or something like that. And then you want to do it like around the same time of day. It gets really technical. So it says frequency for a boy after your positive LH test, you need to, they call it baby dancing, having intercourse at both 24 and 48 hours afterward. It says studies have shown that 2 acts of intercourse 24 hours apart will alter the uterine environment in favor of Y sperm. Because if you don't know, the, I guess, acids, or I don't know, some body chemistry inside of our cervixes is hostile to male sperm and friendly to female sperm. So it's a little bit more difficult for male sperm to crossover. Baby dancing twice serves 2 purposes. One is to alter the environment to favor Y sperm. The other is to ensure that you're baby dancing as close to ovulation as possible. Make sure that your baby dances are no closer than 24 hours apart, so that your partner's body has enough time to regenerate sperm to the count necessary to be able to reach the egg. The long story short, the first attempt will make the environment more friendly to the Y sperm, because I guess it's like a little kamikaze mission, like that first release of male sperm walks so the next release of male sperm can run, if that makes sense. So the first baby dance will serve to make the environment more friendly to the Y sperm. The second will ensure you get Y sperm up to the egg as close to the time of ovulation as possible. And then after that, you guys can, carry on as normal. And then with the girl, it says take your average LH surge day, which would be cycle day 13, and subtract 2, which would be cycle day 11. You would baby dance on cycle day 11 to achieve a 3-day cutoff. Your predicted LH surge would be on cycle day 13. Your predicted ovulation would be on cycle day 14, and you would be baby dancing on cycle day 11, which is 3 days away from cycle day 14. To sum it up, aim to baby dance 3 days before ovulation. It says if you have not become pregnant after 2 to 4 cycles using the 2.5 to 3 day cutoff, then try to shorten that cutoff the next couple cycles. So then you would try a 2 to 2.5 day cutoff, for 2 to 4 cycles. If that doesn't result in a pregnancy, then try a 1.5 to 2 day cutoff. And then after that, try a 1 day cutoff, which would be baby dancing right on your LH surge. For a girl, it says after your 1 well-timed baby dance, do not do it again until 7 days after the day you detected your LH surge. So after you have detected ovulation, your basal body temperature has risen, maybe you noticed your cervical mucus change, and you are testing the LH strips and it confirmed ovulation, then you would wait 7 days after that before you resume normal activities. Those are the 2 books that I credit with us being able to conceive on our first try. And we conceived a boy, just like confirmed via blood test at I think like 20 weeks. No, I think we did it at like 16 weeks. I don't remember. I'll try to insert somewhere on the screen when we did it. But we used the sneak peek gender test. I tried to do the at-home method, the little cup, stuck it here, couldn't get any blood out. So then I was able to get my money back, and then I went and did the lab instead. There was a lab close to where we live, and they drew my blood for me, sent it to a lab for me, and I got the results that way just fine. So I also wanted to talk about the different tools that I use in order to conceive or track my ovulation. Apps. I used Natural Cycles. I started in May 2020 just doing basal body temperature. I actually, when you sign up for the plan with their app, they send you a basal body temperature thermometer. That's their brand. And I was using that from May 2020 until like December, and then the thermometer started being really wonky. Like it would give me readings that I knew weren't right. Just after having tracked it from May to December, I was like, there's no way my body's like going haywire right now. So I figured that the thermometer was faulty. So I contacted them. They sent me another one, but then I ended up just ordering one off of Amazon. So this is the one that I used. It's actually, I didn't realize this until now, but the brand is Easy at Home, which is also the brand of ovulation tests that I was using. I just literally just realized that right now. I started tracking my basal body temperature in 2020. Didn't want to conceive until late last year, 2022. So it had been tracking for about 2 years. And prior to that, I was using like the cheapo apps just to track periods. No temperature or anything like that. This is the basal body temperature thermometer I used. I don't remember how much it was. It's not very expensive. It's less than $20. They also send you an extra battery, and I still have the original battery in this, and it still works. Yeah, I mean, I guess it worked for like 2 years on the same battery, I believe. Another tool that I use, which I showed you, they're LH testing strips. So here's an example of this here with the 2 dark lines would be a detection of LH surge. If it's a lighter pink line, that the level is not high enough, and if there's no line, there's not a surge at all. So what will kind of happen is after your period, if you're first starting out, like I was testing pretty soon, like almost right after my period, to start testing because I don't know when I normally ovulate. So the first cycle that I did it, I started 3 days after the end of my period, which is pretty early. Many people won't ovulate until at least like 10 days into their cycle. But I was testing just because I was excited and I just wanted to see. So what would happen is it'd be like a very, 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 very light pink line. And then as you get closer to ovulation, it darkens up. And then on ovulation, you get that beautiful double dark line. I also have this brand's HCG tests. I don't know where they are, but that was another tool that I used. So the same concept, it's just these little thin strips, and I would pee into a plastic Dixie cup. You want to use your first morning urine because that kind of holds like all of the hormones that have been building up in your body while you've been sleeping. And I would pee into the cup, drop the test strip in there, stare at it, scroll on your phone, just waiting to see what happens, and then dry it off and put it in a notebook. With the Pre-Mom app, which is what I started using once I wanted to start LH testing, you can take a picture of the LH test strip and it will record it for you and give you a reading on the right hand side of like a measurement, which I don't know how accurate that is because it is all, you know, through the app and through a phone. I don't know what, I guess they're testing based on the darkness of your line versus the control line, but I'm not sure exactly the science behind it. But when you get the dark lines, you'll know. And then I got these as well. So these, it comes with a lot less. It's you put the strip, it's kind of the same thing, like it's a strip, but you get this fancy little digital reader to clip the strip into, and the strip is like encased in plastic. I guess I can open one. I have a lot left. Oh, and then like the other thing, I think with these, I had to keep like scissors in the bathroom so that I could just like cut this off easily, because at like 5-6 a.m. when you're testing, who wants to be dealing with all this? So it has like a little tear thing, but it's hard to do. And then it comes out like a little sliver that helps, that does nothing. So yeah, if, I don't know, unless it's user error, I would just like keep scissors wherever you keep these in your bathroom so it's easy to take off, less of a headache in the morning. It's the same strip, it's just in fancy plastic. You stick it in there, it'll like flash until it's ready to be used, and then you would dip it in the urine and then set it on a flat surface until it gives you a reading. If you are not ovulating, you're gonna get just a blank circle, and if you are ovulating, it's gonna be a smiley face. And I even on cycles where like these strips detected an LH surge, I tested 3 cycles, including the cycle that I got pregnant on, and I ovulated in 2 of those cycles, but I only got a smiley face on the cycle that I ended up conceiving in. So I'm not sure what that's about. And I would test this test and this test at the same time, so I don't know what that's about. This is the pregnancy test that I used, and it's a digital one, and it did say pregnant. I guess I should have assumed that it's some type of battery that was gonna die, but it no longer says anything. If you're wanting to like keep this as like a keepsake, you can still keep it, but I don't know, you're gonna have to fudge something that says pregnant, unless, I don't know, mine, it just died. I don't know. But I sent one to my parents, so I'll have to ask them if theirs still says anything or not. But I used the Clear Blue digital readings. Oh, did I mention that? The Easy at Home, they also have an HCG test, so it's the same thing. It's strips, same count. I think they're about the same price, but instead of testing LH, they're testing HCG, which is a hormone that you only release when you're pregnant, and it's pink instead of blue. The last tool, a notebook. You can use this to track and keep your LH test and your HCG test once you start testing for pregnancy. Basically what I would do is write the month at the top. On the side, these are all the dates of that month. You can write on the strip too, but I had written on this part of the strips, and now they're all faded away. You would put like when your period starts would be cycle day 1, so you have 1 for the beginning of the month, your 1 for your first day of your period, and then you can record your LH strips there, tape your LH strips, write the time if you want. I've seen some people do really cool ones where the time is neatly on the paper and not on the strip, so you can better see and it lasts longer, because obviously these were all written on and now there's nothing on them. That was another tool that I used. Here on the conception month is the positive pregnancy tests. The Baby Dust book recommends that you do 3 test cycles before you start your conception tries, if that makes sense. Try it 3 times, you can kind of see what your body's doing, kind of match up your LH strips with the other physiological signs of ovulation, and also kind of to discipline yourself to take it at the same time, because you do want to take at least 2 tests a day. One first thing in the morning, just like your basal body temperature, and the other in the evening. What I would do is wake up in the morning, take my temperature, get out of bed, and take my LH test. Obviously, when you wake up, you have to use the bathroom, so I would never go to the bathroom and take the LH test before taking my temperature. Doing any kind of activity right before or while you're taking your temperature can alter the reading or give an inaccurate reading. I started in September, once at about like 5:20 a.m. and then again at 5:20 or so. Not always at the exact same time in the evening, but in the mornings, yeah, because I have a pretty set routine in the mornings. But in the evening, sometimes you're eating dinner at that time, so maybe you're taking it a little bit later, and that's fine, especially if this is like kind of like your practice run anyway. But if this was my month to try to conceive, then you'll see, I went a little nuts. So yeah, in September, I don't know what happened. I don't believe I was traveling, but I don't even think I ovulated that month or that cycle. The test strips, they've kind of faded. I'll try to insert like an actual photo on the screen, but they're all very light. I never got a super dark line, but my temperature went up a little bit, like my basal body temperature, but I don't remember if it was like a huge jump or not. So that was a little like, okay, what's going on? Like, did I ovulate? Did I not? My temperature went up, but my test strips didn't confirm ovulation. So the next cycle, I got the 2 dark lines, so that was very exciting to kind of like see the science at work, and that happened around cycle day 18. I got the confirmed ovulation, and the next day I tested again. They got a little bit lighter, so that confirmed that this was my peak day, which is the peak day. If you're using the app to take a photo of your strip, it's going to be the day that gives you the highest reading. And if you're just looking at the strips, it's going to be the day that gives you the darkest line. And that's the day that you want to be using to, 1, conceive in general, or 2, if you're trying to conceive a boy, you want to have it as close as to when you get that dark line as possible, and for a girl, a few days before. So that was exciting to see that in October. In November, because I knew this was, I was like, we did 2 cycles, and I was like, well, since I didn't ovulate in September, but I ovulated in October, I was like, well, what if I don't ovulate in November, but I ovulate in December? Just because that September threw me off, it just made me really, I don't want to say anxious, but it made me really want to try that month, if that makes sense. It really made me want to not miss the ovulation at all. So I was testing many times a day. I was testing at the beginning. I was doing like 3 times a day. So I would like test in the morning, like around lunch, and then in the evening. And I did that for a few days until I got a period in that month, which was like in the middle of November. It was my last period. So then you would think I'd be even more crazy, since I knew that was the start of a new cycle. So it's like a refresh to start tracking when the next ovulation is going to happen. But I actually calmed down and was only testing twice a day after that. I was testing twice a day, once in the morning and once in the evening. Had a little bit of a progression, so they were getting darker, but they got their darkest like on my ovulation day, and my temperature shot up, confirming that was the ovulation day as well. That was very exciting to kind of see your body, doing what it's designed to do. So we timed our intercourse around those days, and I told myself that I stopped testing because I got the dark lines on these tests, and I also got, which I don't know where it is, but I also got a smiley face on this little guy too, and that had never happened before, so that was really exciting too. I was like, okay, so I definitely ovulated. We timed it like we're supposed to, and now all we do is wait, and if it happens this cycle, great. It's our first try. Like, it was not a ton of pressure because it was our first try. We're still very hopeful about things, so it was just kind of cruising. And then I told myself I wouldn't take an HCG test until the day I'm supposed to start my period comes, and goes and I don't start my period, then I was like, okay, then I'll test. So I made it pretty far. I think I made it until the apps will tell you like a period prediction date, which is not always exactly right. Sometimes it's a day or a couple days off. Per the app, it was like the day before, and I was just like, well, what's the difference? Like, it's not that much pressure. If it didn't happen this time, then we'll try next cycle. And also maybe my app is a little more off than we think, and let's say it thinks my period is going to start tomorrow, but let's say it doesn't start for like 3 more days, and I take the test and it's negative, I would just keep testing. And sometimes you can be testing a little bit too early, then your body is ready to give you a positive reading on the HCG. So you could be pregnant and doing the pregnancy test and it's coming back negative, but it's just because it's too early and your body just hasn't released the HCG yet. And then if you keep testing, you'll start to see the HCG register on the test. So anyway, I made it to like the day before my period, and I was sitting there in the bathroom and I'm looking at the cup, not expecting, I don't even remember if I was expecting it to see a line or not, but I saw like a little faint pink line showing up, and I was like, well, you can't be halfway or somewhat pregnant. If you see a pink line on a pregnancy test or any kind of double line, it means you're pregnant. It's not like ovulation where there's like a progression of, you know, how much LH is released, and yes, your LH could be releasing, but it's not at its peak, so the egg isn't out and ready to play yet. It's just sitting there waiting for more LH. But with the pregnancy test, if there's anything then other than the control line, then you're pregnant. So it changed, and I went out and showed my husband. We were like about to eat dinner, and I think it wasn't registering for him because I think he's so like it didn't really hit him until he saw pregnant on like the digital reader. I tested at 6:30 at night, 11 days past ovulation, which some people can get a reading as early as 8. Sometimes people don't get one until after 10-11 days past ovulation, so that was cool to get a reading, you know, semi early. And it just kept getting darker and darker. So yeah, after day 15, what they call it in like the TTC, the trying to conceive community, is a dye stealer. So that's when your test line is darker than the control line. So that happened at around like 15-16 days past ovulation. And yeah, these held up a little bit better than the LH test strip did. My peak for LH looks like it was like here or here or somewhere over here. It's hard to see. These ones are a lot more crisp. Oh, and I do want to say I have like 4 boxes of these. If you're testing multiple times a day, you're gonna need, and you're gonna be trying for more than one cycle, you're gonna need more than 1 box, especially if you're like, you know, the type that this is just like exciting for you. You're gonna want to do it a lot. But one of the boxes, like even the control line would be kind of wonky and broken up, so I stopped using that box and ordered another one because I was like, well, I don't know if there's something wrong with the way the strips were made. Maybe it's gonna give me inaccurate readings. So yeah, I wish I had an example to show you, but it would be like the control line would be like kind of faded or like broken up. So I was like, I don't want to get like wrong information. Hopefully that doesn't happen to you, but if it does, just order another one. Try to get your money back if you can. That's basically it. So right now I am 24 weeks. Actually, to the day, I am 24 weeks. And we have a summer baby cooking in the books. We're very excited, and I hope that this video or information has been helpful to you. Hopefully it's not too all over the place. I have a little bit of pregnancy brain going on right now. Soon I will be doing a video on my first trimester experiences because it was a ride. I feel a lot better this trimester, so I'm grateful for that. I'm hoping that the next one stays on this trajectory, as I've heard that the 3rd trimester can go either way. Some people go back to being really sick, like how they were in their first trimester if they were really sick, and for some people it just continues to be good, like you have more energy, your appetite is still there, and your food aversions are not there. I mean, it's just different for everybody. So I'm really hoping for some relief, or not relief, but I'm hoping I don't regress back into like first trimester woes, especially because it'll be hotter, it's summer, like it just feels like a lot more exciting and fun to have warm weather and sunshine. So it would really suck to not feel good during that time of the year, but we'll see. I'll keep you guys posted, and thanks so much for hanging in there, and I hope that something in this was helpful to you. And if you are trying to conceive, as this community that swears by this book says, lots of baby dust to you, and hopefully anyone who has used any of these methods or is trying to conceive, if you have anything cool or encouraging or tips to share in the comments, please leave that for someone else. That's kind of how I learned about this book, was actually someone's YouTube video about getting off of birth control and the steps that she took to do that and learn how to do it properly, led me to this book, which led me to this book, and which led me to, you know, just positive conception experiences for my first time. So you never know who you're influencing positively if you leave, you know, something useful or helpful or insightful in the comments or a recommendation. So please do that, and yeah, subscribe if you would like. I am more of like a fashion, like style based channel, but obviously when you become a mom you still are interested in those things, so I'll still be doing like videos like that and things that you can wear while pregnant and some baby stuff as well. So yeah, if you are into that, hopefully you would stick around, and we'd love to have you, and have a good one. Bye. I forgot. I also wanted to add in how I kind of felt that I was pregnant. So before I took the test, way before my period was about to start, I started being nauseous and I started producing a lot of saliva, and I was like, why else would I be nauseous? So I feel like I kind of knew, but I was also prepared to be wrong. And then the saliva, I don't know what that was about. I never was about to throw up or anything, but my mouth was just producing a lot of saliva for unknown reasons.